خیلی ممنون. I'm very happy to be here. First of all, I would like to thank the Canadian government for their initiative and for the University of Toronto for hosting this event. It's very important for us Iranian people to know that you're thinking of us, that you're hearing the cries of the Iranian people, and you're providing this sort of platform so we can start to envision future free democratic Iran. I'd also like to thank you for not forgetting the people of Iran and the struggles that people are facing there and their ongoing quest for freedom, democracy, human rights, and the rule of law. Something that Mehrangiz Karp just pointed on was the fact that there's not been one level of human rights in Iran. It's been sometimes in the past 33 years since the Islamic Revolution has happened, there's been advancements, few steps forward, and then other days, few steps back, depending on the people that are in power at the time. But for me, this is all fake and under a certain context. And I think that under the current regime and in the past 33 years, we cannot see the advancement of human rights and the abiding of international law using the current Islamic Republic setting since established with the Constitution. If I can just give a few examples, since I am the president and co-founder of an organization called Stop Child Executions, and what we do is we concentrate on trying to put an end to the executions of minors in Iran. And we've seen time and time again where the regime has pretended that they've stopped certain practices, and yet they continue to execute juveniles. Even the fact that Iran has signed international treaties, namely the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and the Charter of the Rights of the Child, which blatantly forbids the executions of those who've committed offenses before the age of 18. And they continue to execute children for such offenses such as homosexuality, drug trafficking, sex outside of marriage, of course, murder. And when we see that they've put together these laws and they say that Sharia law supersedes all international law, then I say this regime is not reformable. It's not, Iran under this regime cannot reform and change in the context that we would like to see. They have, sorry, my brain is in baby mode because I just left my 6-week-old baby who was still feeding, and so if I can take a minute to recoup. Countries, I believe, are supposed to advance and not regress. Unfortunately, what we're seeing in Iran for women's rights and children's rights and everybody's rights, really, we're seeing a step back. And if we look back in Iran's history, this should not be the case. If we compare it to even 2,500 years ago, under the reign of Cyrus the Great, who was the founding father of the Persian Empire, we saw that women were in leading positions of the military, courthouses, and different ministries. And even though we had some top generals in the Navy and the Army. And since the Islamic Revolution, under first Ayatollah Khomeini and now under Ayatollah Khamenei's watch, we're seeing grave human rights abuses. Women are treated, as was said, as second-class, if not third-class citizens, and being valued as half of a man. And this applies to, as you said, being forced to veil and being, lashed if the hijab comes down a little bit. Their professions have been restricted. They're not allowed to enter certain jobs. For example, can't become presidents or cannot become judges. We know that Shirin Ebadi's judgeship was revoked at the time of the revolution. There's no equality in terms of divorce, inheritance, and custody. in terms of divorce, men can simply suggest that, they declare that the divorce is happening, yet women have to prove that their husbands are either impotent or crazy to justify the divorce. And as far as custody is concerned, this is something I'm very concerned about because I get many emails from women in Iran who feel very much trapped in their abusive marriages and relationships because of the fact that their young children are, the husbands are given custody of these children. And they can't leave the relationship because they don't want to lose their children. And so they cry out for help. And they want people in the world to know what they're experiencing, and they want definitely changes to happen. As was mentioned, also the testimony of women are valued as being half of a man's. For example, if you get into a car accident and you kill a woman, you would only have to pay half as much in blood money to the family of the victim than if it was a man. And again, what was also brought up was the age of responsibility. 9-year-old girls, Mehragi said, could be married off to men very much their senior in their 60s, for example.
معذرت میخوام 9 سالگی برای مسئولیت کیفری criminal responsibility. ولی برای ازدواج در حال حاضر 13 ساله سن قانونی.
Okay, is that the new law? Because what I had come to understand is that in the Quran, it says that 9-year-old girls should start to read their biblical studies or their Quranic studies. And so if they're old enough to be able to engage in religious activity, then they're old enough to either get married or engage in their criminal responsibility. And that is not equal to a man's, boys are criminally responsible at the age of 15. And so those that dare to stand up to these abuses are also suppressed. Women, as we know, have been very strong proponents of change in Iran, and whether it's gathering to do mini protests or during the 2009 presidential elections where millions of people came on the streets, it was predominantly women that were taking the lead there. Or if we look at it more from a macro level and take the example of somebody like Nazanin who's been defending the rights of children and political prisoners, simply the fact of defending these people, she is now placed in jail. So what kind of a justice system is that?
Okay. ببخشید. قبل از اینکه شما نکته رو بگید، مثل اینکه کامنت های از ایران رسیده که من خواهش میکنم از پویا اینا رو در اختیار جمع بذارم.
یک کامنتی هست از Afshin 4 از بالا ویژن که براتون به فارسی میخونم. یعنی شما دستاوردهای دوران خاتمی